Hi, everyone. Welcome to Healing the Holidays. I'm Denise Brown, and my website is careyearsacademy.com, which is my organization, which is called the Caregiving Years Training Academy. So let's start with today's presentation, which is a daily healing plan. So I came up with this idea in September because I really have been thinking about healing. This is really a time in our lives when healing seems to matter most. Feels like we're always trying to move through into healing. And I started thinking about the process of healing. We talk about grieving and then we know that we're trying to heal, but what's the process we go through? How can that look? So what I came up with is this idea that we're healing through a situation, a loss, we're healing with, and these are the strategies that we use to help with our healing process. And I think it's helpful to think, where are we healing to? So the three-step process is we're healing through a loss with support to peace, for instance. So it becomes this sentence, these words that we can use, which describe what our process is. I think oftentimes we think about grieving and it feels so big, it's hard to really get through this fog of grief. And I wanted to be able to provide this process and these words that can help us. I also think it's important for us to remember that we might have one big loss, but that's not the only loss we're grieving through that we need healing about. So, for instance, we do a twice a month grief care and share group. It's a grieving support group. And last week, two of our attendees were talking about their losses related to the changes in their relationships after a loved one's death. So they were grieving this loss of a relationship, this loss of a person in their life. And then they were grieving the loss of the relationships which were attached to the person who had died. So you can see how it builds up. It's one loss, but there's so many losses entwined with that. And I think it's helpful if we can get specific. So when we think about our day, we can think about what's hurting us right now today, and then think about how to apply that process to what's hurting us today. In addition, the holidays really can add even more significant losses. And we think about the holidays today, everything is different. How we're going to connect with family, how we're going to celebrate with family, how we're going to communicate with family, it's all different this year. That's a loss. And then trying to figure out how do we navigate that can feel overwhelming. And I think if you are in a situation where you might have older adults in your family and you think about, oh my gosh, this might be the last holiday for all of us, it adds this significant amount of pressure. So for instance, my parents are 89 and 86. And the reality is this really might be their last holiday season. So we grieve our future while we're trying to cope with what's happening today. And that can really start to weigh on our heart. Okay, so let's think about what we're healing through. And I'm going to ask you guys to write into the chat room, if you feel comfortable, what you feel like you're healing through. And I want you to honor whatever loss you have right now. Meaning that sometimes we think, you know what, my loss isn't that significant, so I don't want to talk about it. But it's significant to you. So we're not going to compare our losses. We're just going to share honestly what it feels like we're healing through. What feels like a loss today? And I think of this as a really helpful strategy to pinpoint what hurts right now. Because right now, there might be a loss because of what just happened. So for instance, maybe there's a phone call or an event that just happened and it brings up a loss. But tomorrow there might be a different trigger for your loss. And so you want to be specific about what that feels like right then. So right now, when you think about what you're healing through, what comes up? Okay. Thank you guys for sharing in the chat room. So some of our attendees are really working through that loss of control over the situation with COVID, dealing with the loss of a husband, significant situations, right? Significant losses. And I wanted to give you some other ideas about what you might feel like you're healing through. So we had some great examples in the chat room about significant loss. But it also could be disappointment. It could be that you were hoping for something to happen and it didn't. Or maybe you were hoping it would happen in a certain way and it happened in a different way. Or maybe you were hoping for family to step up in a different way during this holiday season, and they didn't. I think sometimes we feel like a wimp when we are healing through disappointment. It's kind of like that, well, just keep going, stiff upper lip. But I think it's important to give ourselves time to really focus on what's disappointing to me? What hurts because of that disappointment? And then certainly changes, right? And after a death, there are so many changes to adjust to. So it's the loss of the relationship, it's the loss of a person, but it's also a loss of how our day was structured, rituals around that relationship, that giving and receiving of love, communicating with each other, significant changes. And I think if we can get specific again about which particular change hurts now, we could think about how to help us heal through it. I think when you're in the helping industry, many of you are, you're giving so much. Burnout is something that we heal through as well. And just like disappointment, where we think, okay, I just have to muddle through this burnout, I don't think we give ourselves enough grace to think about how can we heal through the burnout and what is really burning me out. And if we think about healing through burnout, we can give ourselves a chance to really look at burnout. Is it relationship? Is it job? Is it work? Is it the rigors of the day? Is it something like worries? And then we think about stress. Burnout and stress are siblings, I think. I do another presentation around compassion fatigue during caregiving because I really think that compassion fatigue is this umbrella term. And in order for us to really think about what can help us, we have to get specific. So with our burnout, if we can get specific about if we're tired of trying, if we're tired of being gracious, for instance, allowing people to just say things to us that hurt our feelings, but we're just smile and keep going, or from coping, or from supporting, then we can think about what will help us. It's the same with our worries. I think about every worry needs a plan. If we're healing through our worries, a plan might help us feel better. There could be an ending in your life. And certainly if we think about the holidays, there's an end to a tradition perhaps that you really enjoyed. There could be an ending around a relationship, like through divorce, or just you no longer find the friendship fulfilling. There could be an ending around something you do every day that you can no longer do. So for instance, I used to swim laps and I loved it. I don't swim laps anymore in our indoor pool because of the concerns around COVID. So much has changed for us, and yet we just keep going, right? It's helpful to stop and think, oh my gosh, this hurts me right now. And then I also think we're healing through weight gain sometimes in our life. And I added this one in because I started thinking about the 30 pounds that I gained in 2015 when my parents were both critically ill at the same time. And I was talking about it with a friend, or really a colleague, because he made me mad. So I'm not going to call him a friend. Anyway, so a couple of years later, I was talking about this weight gain. And he said, well, you should have been taking care of yourself. And the reality was, I was taking care of myself. But the stress was so significant that I gained 30 pounds. And I think We are so judgmental around our weight gain that we beat ourselves up for it. And what if we just shift our perspective and think, well, I'm healing through weight gain, and I'm healing through weight gain with more exercise, and that will help me feel better. We don't have to beat ourselves up for just doing the best that we can during difficult situations. We can give ourselves grace again. Okay, thank you guys so much for sharing about what you're healing through in the chat room. I hope that you find it helpful to just write it out, to really be honest about it. Know that we support you in what you're healing through. Know that we understand that it's difficult and it hurts, and that you deserve to feel better. Okay, just curious, how do you feel about this list? How helpful is it to see a list of what you might be healing through? You can share some thoughts in the chat room about that as well. Okay, so then let's get specific about the strategies. Let's think about what we're healing through. And as we're going through today's presentation, you can also think of these as prompts. This PowerPoint will be available with the archive so that you can look at the prompts, so that you'll notice that there's 3 different prompts, and you can use these prompts every day to figure out what specifically you're hurting from so that you can heal through, and then what you're going to use as a strategy. Okay, so what are you healing with? What are the strategies that you can use that can help you feel better? So here are some suggestions for you. Movement. It could be walking. It could be dancing. It literally could be just getting up and going to a different room. Words can help us cope. And I think of words both spoken and written. So words that we say to someone and words that we write about how we feel. Just curious if you guys journal. Would love to know about your journaling practice if you guys journal. We can also heal with connections, so connecting to a support system. Last week at our Grief Care and Share, we had 2 attendees who had never met each other. And if you thought about their stories, it would seem that they didn't have that much in common. But in the sharing, they discovered a lot in common. They both described their loss in the same way. They both described the characteristics of the person they lost in the same way. And they both described the impact of their loss in their life the same way. That connection was really comforting to them. Our connections can be a strategy that helps. It is important to have the right connections. We've all probably had the experience where you have someone in your life that you think they're going to be right there with me because I was right there with them, and they are right there away from you, nowhere to be found. So the right connections are important. And I also think sometimes it can be a little frustrating to think, oh my gosh, but who I thought I had in my life, who I could connect with during this difficult time, isn't here for me, and it really hurts. So, right, the losses add up. Keep looking. Give yourself a break. Give yourself time when it feels like it's too frustrating, but keep trying to find the right connection for you. And Lynn is writing in the chat room about the loss of her identical twin sister. Lynn, it just must feel like part of you, literally part of you, is gone. I'll see what I can do to find a support group for that for you, Lynn. Thank you for writing that and letting us know. Music can be helpful. One of our certified caregiving consultants, Danelle LeBlanc, talks about how music has helped her heal when she is really feeling like, oh my gosh, nothing is going right. It's too much all at once. So listening to the right kind of music can be healing as well. And I also think we can look at different types of music to help us with different types of hurts. So maybe you create a playlist that really speaks to what you're missing. So maybe one playlist is about what your family member who has died loved to listen to. And so you listen to that music because it really connects you. And maybe there's another playlist that soothes you. Maybe there's another playlist that helps you fall asleep at night because you're really trying to relax and it's hard at the end of the day when you're trying to fall asleep. And prayer could be helpful too. You could, again, think of a different prayer that you say depending on what you're healing from. Using different prayers can be helpful. I do a survey of those who are caring for a family member around their compassion fatigue. And I've asked them what helps them feel better, what energizes them. And interestingly enough, it's solitude. So, how can you have solitude? Where can you go to have a place to simply cry? Where can you go to have a place to maybe sit back and have the memories in your head of a better time and a better place of healing? Maybe there's a particular visualization that you create that guides you through healing. So you could close your eyes and think of yourself surrounded by a healing white light and healing your hurts. You could maybe connect with an app called Calm, aptly named, right? During those moments of solitude to really connect you to relaxation and feeling okay. I think solitude is such a helpful strategy because it allows us to be in our pain without worrying others seeing our pain. We often go out into the world with this public face of, I'm okay. And maybe in our families, when someone says, are you okay? You say yes, because you don't feel like, you worry that you're going to burden them. And that solitude is a place for us to just say, man, I am hurting today. I am just going to sit here and hurt and cry. I put essential oils on our list because there's something about that action of diffusing that makes me feel better. So if I'm in a situation where I think I have no idea how to heal through this, how to feel better, if I take an action, like just putting some essential oils into a diffuser, it makes me feel like, okay, I'm doing something. I'm not completely powerless to this situation. It feels like sometimes we're out of ideas, right? And if there's just one thing we can do, it takes us out of, oh gosh, I'm stuck in this, and into some kind of action. I also think it's helpful if we think about boundaries. Yeah, thank you, Nancy and Emily. And there's certain aromas that I really like now that I'm able to think about. You know what I also want to mention too, if you're really having a hard time sleeping at night, you could use lavender as an essential oil. You could rub it on your feet. You could drop little droplets onto your pillowcase, or you could use your diffuser in your room and diffuse lavender. Lavender is what relaxes us. So I like boundaries because sometimes we just feel like, oh, we just got to take it, but we don't. So, for instance, if you know there's a time in your day where you're really connected to a memory that makes you just, oh my gosh, ache with loss, put a boundary around that time. Years ago, I connected with a family caregiver who took care of her mom. And after her mom's death, she decided to implement what she called replacement therapy. And in replacement therapy, she looked at her day during caregiving, the times when she would feed her mom and bathe her mom and move her mom from the bed into the living room. And she decided she was going to replace those times with something else. So in her replacement therapy, when she would typically feed her mom, We thought of something that she could do that was comforting for her, not necessarily about that act of eating, but that act of comfort, because it was comforting for her when she fed her mom. That was a boundary she set around that time. So you could do something similar, thinking about replacement therapy. And if you think about the emotion that you felt during that time, think about how you could create that emotion with a different action. So again, it could be that there was a time in your day where you felt like, boy, I really communicated with someone who loves me, and now he's gone. Now she's gone. Think about how you could communicate in a way with love. So maybe it's taking the dog for a walk or petting the cat, something simple that connects you to that emotion of love. Boundaries also are around communicating. If someone is asking too much of you, set a boundary. I wish I could. I am healing through the death of my husband right now, and I'm not there yet to be able to help you. We often, I think, ask for approval around the boundaries we set. Like, well, are you okay if I say no? Or we offer a really long explanation about why we're setting a boundary. And I would really encourage you to think about words that are simple, that decline an offer, that doesn't involve, are you okay if I decline this offer? Or a long explanation. I'm declining this offer because of all these things that are going on. Simply say, thank you so much. I can't right now. No guilt. Just move on. Okay, another strategy that we can think about are rituals. It could be a ritual that you use to start your day or to end your day. It could be a ritual in the middle of your day. We are used to rituals around the holidays, right? The way we gather, the food we create. Thinking about a ritual that comforts you could be really helpful during a difficult day. If there's a day where you just think, oh my gosh, I cannot stop crying, maybe there's a ritual you create around that kind of a day. And it's not about blaming yourself or telling yourself to get over it or telling yourself that you're just a wimp. It's about saying, wow, it really hurts me today. I am going to create a ritual that honor my tears, because my tears are the way I show how much I hurt. And I just had a significant loss, and holy Hannah, I deserve to hurt. I'm curious if you guys have any rituals that you use in your day. And if you do, please share them in the chat room. We're having a lot of great conversations. And Megan is writing that she feels a lot of guilt for not being there for her dad during his life. We had a difficult relationship and I regret not supporting him more. You know, I think one of the hardest parts about death is that we don't get a do-over. The finality of it, I think, just takes our breath away. And then we have these thoughts that we should have done more, should have done better, should have been different, should have been better. And I think we can actually give ourselves comfort by connecting with someone who is gone, someone who has died, through a letter or through our visualizations. So it's this idea that you can close your eyes and picture yourself talking to your loved one and saying what you wanted to have said years before, but just couldn't. And I also want to just really drive home this point that when someone's life has ended, we are different during their life than we are now. There are lessons learned about death that change how we view relationships we had during life. And so we can't apply the whole I should have known better. It's this idea that now that you have a different perspective, you want to be different in that relationship, and you still can. You can close your eyes and visualize yourself with your family member, with that loved one, holding hands and saying, I regret that we didn't do better during your life here on earth, but I want to do better during your life up there in heaven. So I want to thank you for the gifts that you gave me. I want to let you know that I think of you every day and I love you. And I'm so glad you were my dad. And you can do that conversation every day. So, in those moments where you start to feel guilty, you can say, okay, the guilt is getting to me. So, instead, I'm going to turn it into action. And the action is this visualization that I create where I say just what I wish I would have said years ago when I didn't have the wisdom to say them. But now I have that wisdom and I'm going to say them now. If you prefer, you can just write a letter. You can write a letter in your journal. It's not a letter that you mail, but it's a letter that you write. Okay. Okay, thank you guys for sharing about your rituals. So Emily is writing that it's meditation and breathing and prayer and release and gratitude. Actually, Emily, thank you for that because I think gratitude can be really helpful too. So maybe there is a way to add gratitude with something else you do. So, for instance, if you take daily walks, you could add a gratitude. Thank you, God, for this day. Thank you for the changing leaves. Thank you for nature. I took a walk. I try to take a walk every day, and I took a walk on a really warm day in November in Chicago. And for those of you that live in Chicago, you remember that Sunday just last week. It was beautiful. And everywhere I walked, it seemed like there was a man of the house out there setting up Christmas lights, putting them up in the bushes. And everyone I saw, I said to him, those look great. I love your lights. And so I had a nice conversation, 12 feet apart from him. But it felt really great. It felt really fun to be able to talk to people, just say, hey, that was a ritual on that particular walk that was really comforting. It was a way to connect with people that I hadn't had a chance to before. Okay. So thinking about gratitude related to a movement can be helpful too. So when I would swim laps, I would touch the wall and turn and say, thank you, God. So the reason I loved to swim laps is because it was such a rhythm. And if you add something like gratitude in a rhythm, it becomes that much more powerful. The rhythm of walking too can be comforting. Walking can be a form of meditation. For those of you that walk a lot, you know that in some regard, you kind of feel like, I don't have any problems right now as I'm walking. And when you're problem free, you can be grateful. I also think that we can't be in judgment when we're in gratitude. And if there's someone that is challenging me and I think, wow, I'm really having a hard time with this person, I instead move to thank you for that insight. Thank you for that feedback, whatever it might be. That moves me out of judgment and I feel much better about myself if I'm in gratitude and have moved out of judgment. Okay, so Mary Jo is sharing a ritual that she has, which is in a large jar, she writes one thing that she's grateful for. And at the end of the year, she puts it in a Ziploc and she starts the new year with an empty jar. Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. And then she uses the gratitudes from last year and the new year. And every day she takes out a gratitude from last year and she prays for a person or an issue. Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. And you're also, Mary Jo, it sounds like you're reflecting back on what you were grateful for and really connecting to that moment in time where you found something to be grateful for. Yeah. And we're also talking about journaling and praising and singing in the chat room. So I love that. I love that. There's something about movement and singing as well, because singing is a movement. We are moving out of ourselves, and that can be really helpful too. Okay. And then I wanted to mention about adjustments too. Yeah, Tony, I'd love to sing out loud when no one's watching or listening too. Yes, it's a good thing. It's a blessing for others. Okay. I wanted to write about adjustments because I would also say that adjustments can be exhausting too. That can really add to our compassion fatigue if we're constantly adjusting. And I want to make sure that we have a a way to differentiate adjusting versus accommodating. So sometimes if we are accommodating, we are putting someone else's needs first and we're making them the priority. And there are times during our day, certainly, and there are times in relationships that we do that, but we want to make sure that we're also keeping ourselves a priority. So adjusting, I think, is more of a, okay, let's just compromise and find the win-win. Sometimes though, just going into a conversation about compromising can be exhausting, right? So I would say adjusting can be a strategy, but use it when it feels like you have the energy to use it. And if you don't have the energy to use it, it's okay. You just want to make sure that you're not accommodating everybody else and leaving yourself behind. Okay. Yeah, dancing. I love the idea of dancing too. Yeah, and that's a great movement. I started watching Instagram and I happened to come across someone in her 60s who does a lot of jump roping. And I thought, I could jump rope too. So I did buy a jump rope. I haven't used it yet. I just was starting to figure out, well, where am I going to jump rope? Because I don't really want to jump rope where people could watch me. But I realized in my apartment building, we have a basement with really high ceilings and I could jump rope down there and no one would see me. So that's what I'm going to start to do in the winter when it feels like it's too cold or too miserable to walk, to go down and jump rope. The thing about something like dancing or jumping rope, you don't have to do it for an hour, right? You could jump rope for 10 minutes. You could dance for 10 minutes and feel like, wow, that really moved me out of what was hurting and took me into an action where I felt better. Okay, thanks you guys so much for sharing in the chat room. It's really helpful to me. Okay, so then let's think about where we're going with our healing. And where we're going doesn't have to feel like, oh, you know what? So there's the prompt, I'm healing with. Okay, so there's your prompt. And then here's our third prompt, which is, what are you healing to? And I often think this is the part that we just kind of overlook. One of the attendees last week at our grieving support group said, you know what, I just feel stuck in this grief. And after we talked it out with him, really what he was looking to heal to was almost in many ways forgiveness of himself. He had acted in a way that his friend's family wanted him to as his friend was dying. And it wasn't the way that he wanted to act. He's an emotional person. His friend's family said, no emotions, just stoic. And he did it, but he felt guilty about it. And he felt guilty that connections were leaving. And then I think you also kind of start to feel like, I feel guilty about this, but I should get over it, right? Oh my gosh, I got to get over this. What's wrong with me that I haven't gotten over it? And that keeps you stuck. And if we have a place we want to land that can help us move toward that place, there's no timetable to this because we know this is a process. So it doesn't become something like, well, I want to get to forgiveness in 3 months. It's just, I want to reach forgiveness. So some ideas about what we're healing to include peace, forgiveness, acceptance, new ways, letting go, and love. And the healing to love could be love for ourselves, love for someone who yet has yet to appear in our life, or for love for someone who's in our life. I think peace of mind is the greatest gift we can give ourselves. It's also the gift we withhold most often. We think we should be perfect and better and have unlimited patience, the compassion of Mother Teresa. We just have these ideas about who we are, but we are imperfect and doing the best we can. I think peace of mind is something that we can all look toward as part of our healing strategy. Just like forgiveness. And it's forgiveness of others, forgiveness of self, could be forgiveness of our faith, forgiveness of a circumstance or a situation, and acceptance. Acceptance can be quite powerful, but I think we have this idea that acceptance means something like giving up. If I accept this, it means that I've given up that things could be different. In many ways, if we don't accept, we give ourselves permission to stay in denial. And denial keeps us in our past. Acceptance moves us into our present. And the way that we can cope and manage and feel better is if we're in our present moment. Present, right? Gift. And acceptance moves us into right now. And right now we can think about, what can I do to feel better? Acceptance opens up our possibilities. Acceptance is about the courage to see our life as it is right now, without judgment. To be able to say, this is my life right now. How will I use it to help me feel better? There are possibilities in acceptance. In denial, there's only the past, and we cannot change our past. Except, of course, I'm just going to give this caveat. We can always offer an apology to someone in our past. That is really, I think, one of the ways we can change our past is by apologizing. Otherwise, acceptance is about right here, right now, and that's where our possibilities and our solutions and our chances are. We give ourselves a chance to live fully when we accept our life as it is right now. New ways really speaks to our holiday season. We're looking at new ways to celebrate and connect and be together. And we have to think outside the box. So what are new ways that you can celebrate and honor and be a part of something bigger than yourself? And I think letting go really helps with expectations, letting go of our expectations of others and thinking about, okay, I'm going to let go of what I expect of them, but I'm going to let in what I can do right now, right here in this moment. What can I say and do and create? And then love. How can I love? Who can I love? How can I make love a part of my day? Okay, so I'd love to hear from you guys in the chat room. What do you think about words that you would add to this list? When you think about healing, where do you want to go with it? Where do you want to land? Where are you healing to? Yeah, starting new traditions. I love that, Michelle. I love that. There is a life skill that I don't think that we really look at as a life skill, and that is the ability to experiment. And this is the time in our life when we're going to be experimenting. And I love the idea of experimenting because it's not about creating a certain outcome. It's just trying something and seeing what happens. And when we experiment, we are open. We're not closed off to, well, it's got to be this outcome or it's not successful. The experimenting can be a process that could be fun, enlightening, creative for us. Experiment. Okay, so let's look at a couple of ways that this process could look. And thanks you guys for sharing about, oh, I love this idea of letting go of the past while cherishing the moments. Thank you, Emily, for that. Okay, and Michelle is writing that she's going to keep the tradition of having Chinese food On Christmas Eve, her mom is gone, but she's going to still do that. Yeah, change can be positive. Yes. Making new traditions can make changes that are positive in our lives, right? I think holding on to traditions challenges us to think that we can have new traditions that are just as comforting for us as the old ones, but we believe that sometimes the old ones are the only way. And it's hard to let go of that because we have good memories of those traditions, right? We think about what we used to do and how we used to feel, and that felt good. And it seems like we're never going to feel that way again. And we have to experiment and be open to see what we could create. Okay, so let's take a look at a couple examples. Okay, so I think we all have someone in our family that just says the worst thing to us, right? You just think, oh my gosh, does Frank ever listen to what he says out loud? Or does Frank ever think about what he's going to say before he says it out loud? Okay, so in our moment of grieving, when someone says something that's insensitive to us, we might think, I have no idea how to express myself because that just hurt. Wow. Wow. So here's how that process could look. So I'm healing through insensitivity with words to be assertive. And then this prompts you to think of what words can you use the next time someone says something insensitive. And it could be just as simple as, I'm still hurting, and those words just hurt. And that's it. And I would love if you guys want to share in the chat room how you respond when someone says something that you think, wow, that was really insensitive. And again, just like boundaries where we think, oh, we have to ask for approval or we have to offer a really exhaustive explanation. If someone says something that's insensitive to you, you can just simply say, that hurt. Wow, that hurt. You don't have to apologize for being hurt, and you don't have to explain why that hurt. You just say, wow, that hurt. I'm really missing right now, and that hurt. Okay, so Nancy has the suggestion. I just want to, yeah, yes, absolutely. Yeah, so Nancy says, I am grieving and I do not appreciate that comment. Yep. And then Jennifer's offering this great suggestion, which is, I have learned to wait and take some time before responding. And I love that because sometimes we feel like the pressure of the moment is that we have to respond right now. And right now might not be the time to respond, but we can always give ourselves time and say, Frank, last week when I saw you, I was really hurt by what you said. I'm really in a place where I hurt. And what I'd love to hear instead are words of comfort and support. What I really love to hear is that someone understands that I hurt. And Howard is just saying that sometimes just the ouch works too. I love that. Ouch. Wow. Yeah. That is a good one right there. Oh, Regina. Yeah. Okay. So Regina's writing in the chat room. Regina, thank you for being here too. It's good to see you. Recently, someone said to Regina that she must be okay now because her husband of 30 years has died 6 months earlier. So there's been 6 months since his death. So she must be okay now. And she responded, 6 months might seem a long time to you, but it's like yesterday for me. Wow, Regina, that's powerful. That's powerful. What a great perspective. Love that. Love that. Wow. Okay. So perhaps you have a ritual around the holidays, which is getting together with friends for a cookie exchange. I just want to move something around a little bit. Bear with me here. My chat room is blocking. Okay, there we go. Okay, so because of COVID, it's just not possible to get together. So the process can sound like this. So I'm healing through my disappointment. So disappointment is how we feel about the situation, with a daily walk to let go. So I'm going to move to stay healthy. I'm not going to replace the cookie exchange with a huge pie for myself, right? So I'm going to think of something else that is good for me, but helps me feel that disappointment. I'm not going to pretend that I'm disappointed. Oh, Mary Jo's having a virtual cookie bake. Okay, that sounds good. Okay, so let's take a closer look at how this could compound another loss, though. So you're not able to get together with friends for a cookie exchange, and you miss that opportunity to be with friends, but you also miss the opportunity to create and bake cookies that you used to with your mom. So your mom is gone, and one of the ways you stayed connected with her during the holidays was to make these cookies that she was famous for. So the strategy can sound like this. I am healing through disappointment with a daily walk while I give thanks to my mom so that I can find peace. So during that walk, you could, at the every corner, if you're walking in the city, for instance, at the end of every quarter, before you cross the street to get on the other side, you could say, thank you, Mom, for, and then give thanks for a certain situation, a certain characteristic, a certain gift that she had. So that by the time you're done with your walk, maybe you've said thank you to your mom 20 times. And each time you say it, you think, oh my gosh, I love that about her. I love that about her. And that's a way that you can stay connected to her. Okay, just a couple tips for you about the daily healing plan. You're going to create options. So whatever situation is in front of you, you can think about a strategy that you could use for that situation, but you want to give yourself options, choices around what you use. And I also think it's important to know that there are some days where our energy just isn't there, for instance, for that daily walk. So you're going to do something different. Maybe you just go outside, and that's the strategy. That's okay. Your energy is going to be up and down, right? We have to be really kind to ourselves about our energy level. And this idea of experimenting, just try it. So we've got some great suggestions from all of you today that we can think about. How can I implement in that particular strategy in my life? Okay, and then really thinking about how you could turn this into something that you see. So you have this opportunity to see the plan so that you know you have a strategy. It could be that you create something on your wall where it's what you're healing from, what you're healing through, what you're healing with, and then what you're healing to. So maybe you have 3 sheets of paper hanging on your wall, and you have little stickies about what is happening. So if you're healing through insensitive comments, you take that sticky and then you match it with a strategy that will help you. And then you match those two with a place that you want to land so that you pick and choose what's happening, how you can heal with it, and then where you want to heal to. And it could be that you do that on your fridge. Maybe you have 3 different lists, and then you write down what you're healing through, what you're healing with, and then what you're healing to. You could also do it in your journal. And really pay attention. Yes, and Howard, I'll have a copy of the PowerPoint of the slides with the archives, so you'll be able to access this. And really be aware of what works. So if you come across something that unexpectedly works, use it, write it down, pay attention to it. Okay, thank you guys so much for being here today. I really wish you a chance to heal this holiday season. And I'll give you my contact information as well. So, what questions might you have before we close for today? And it's okay if there's no questions. I hope you found this helpful. Thanks you guys so much for being here. You've got oh, Nancy is spreading, okay, her mom's ashes today. Nancy, we're thinking of you. And I hope you'll be able to join us tomorrow, Nancy. If you can, let us know how it goes. Let us know what you do and how you do it and how it feels. Okay. Thanks you guys so much for being here. Tomorrow we have one more session. and then Thursday and Friday. It's great to connect with all of you. And you've got my contact information. So if you have a question that comes up afterward and you'd like to send me an email, please feel free to reach out. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Hopefully see you tomorrow. Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.